about time.
Hey guys, welcome back. A few things before we get started. Don't forget Hopewell Farm CBD has a new promo code Ultra JTT15 that gets you 15% off all their 1,000 and 2,000 milligram CBD. That does not stack with the normal promo code, which is Journey to Truth 10, which gets you 10% off of all their merchandise. But take advantage of that promo code, or both of those promo codes. Those are in the description below. Also, all of our Teespring merchandise is 20% off with promo code 20 and back. And what's the other one? J2T20, Aaron?
Yeah, that's it.
J2T20. Tonight's guest is somebody I've been following on Facebook for a while now, and I absolutely love all his posts. I resonate with everything he's putting out. Antonio Arilo, and he is a spiritual mentor and guide. And I mean, he's as real as it gets, if you ask me. There's a lot of deception in the spiritual community. So the reality of spirituality is what I wanted to get into today. So welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man, this is this is a heavy topic. It's a deep topic, but it's a reality that a lot of us are experiencing right now, as far as the deception, even, and the misunderstandings about spirituality and what it is. And when people are first getting into this stuff, they don't really know what they're getting themselves into. And you have a great way of breaking it down, and you're always real, which we need more of. So I'd like to just kind of get into what you're seeing, what you're witnessing right now.
Well, what I'm witnessing right now in the spiritual community, it has many layers to it. But one of the things that I talk about quite frequently is spiritual discernment. And because I'm seeing a lot of deception in the spiritual community and also in the galactic community. And I'm seeing that many people are being deceived, and they are opening themselves up to certain energies and people that honestly are not good for them, that don't have their highest intentions in mind, And I've worked with many people, with my one-on-one services, and just people who just message me just randomly asking me about like other people, because they had a bad vibe or they had, like a terrible session, and, I mean, it's been a lot of people who have done that. And that kind of just opened my eyes to, the reality that, that there's just a lot of deception out there. And there's a lot of people who are misusing energy. They're misusing information. They're misusing even their own spiritual gifts to access certain energies, certain dimensions, and also people's energies in order to, I don't know, like get, more power or just more access in general, or so they can control the spiritual narrative, is what I'm seeing a big exercise of control of the spiritual narrative,
Right.
And there are many people that are imposing themselves as the gatekeepers of a certain kind of knowledge, right? And the vast majority of the time, that knowledge is very, very compromised and like filled with a lot of spiritual, I should say, technology that attaches to people's energy fields. Like I call them Draco tech, right? There's these like little, it's like you can't see it with the natural eye, but because what many of these people are connected to on a spiritual level, they are feeding off of a certain kind of like a matrix that has a certain kind of distorted information. And because they're connected to that, it brings a lot of these like little, like spiritual nanobots that goes into people's consciousness and literally rearranges certain ways that people think. So even if someone may have a resistance to what they're saying, if they keep listening, eventually it's going to be, an acquired truth, and I'm seeing a lot of that, and just a lot of just misuse in general, just like the spiritual gifts and the spiritual energies and just the knowledge out there. But if you have like any like, like specific questions, I can, get deeper into certain things, with that.
Right. Well, it's interesting for one, that's a mainstream media tactic. You just repeat a lie over and over until, it's accepted.
Confidently. Yeah.
And then sometimes, a lot of these people might be tapping into information that they themselves aren't even aware isn't true. Because you mentioned in one of your videos, like, especially like getting into galactic history and stuff, like none of us actually know, none of us actually know exactly how it played out. We have these concepts and ideas of what happened. But when you start getting into these details and you literally start seeing people arguing about these details that really in essence don't matter either way, because we're moving forward. But that part of it's interesting to me. And then there was also, what was it? Oh, you made a post about the unrealistic standard that a lot of these spiritual leaders are held to. I would like to talk about that also.
Yeah. So I had a recent, I guess, confrontation with someone in my comment section. I mean, I always get those, people who just come and they just want to impose a certain kind of way that I need to be, because I tend to be very straightforward. I tend to be very confrontative and very uncompromising, and many spiritual people, they don't like that, and they say, oh, well, that's not very spiritual, and that's not very loving. That's not very compassionate or whatever, and I realized just from observing many people, just how, spiritual people, just how fake they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right.
And I just have to say like how it is, it's just very fake, and I'm just trying to bring, I guess, an awareness of this level of inauthenticity that many spiritual people feel like they need to uphold, because there's this belief that you need to be all compassionate and you need to be just all loving and you need to just accept everyone at any level and not hold anyone to any standard or anything like that. And that's just not true,
Mm-hmm.
because when we don't hold anyone to any kind of standard, then people are never challenged to look at themselves or to even grow or to, work on their character, right? They can just be and say however, whatever the heck they want without any kind of, like self-awareness,
Right.
Yeah.
And, the way that I am, I bring a lot of that self-awareness to people. A lot of times they aren't prepared for it, because I am like a very strong mirror with the way that I word certain things, to the spiritual community. And I feel like there is a level of authenticity that the spiritual community as a whole are not tapping into because of distorted beliefs about what it means to be spiritual. And really, for me, what it means to be spiritual is really authentic and to just honor how you truly feel. Like you don't have to change your lingo. You don't have to change the way that you talk or the way that you present yourself to people. Like you can just be yourself, because what I've been noticing over the years is that people, they literally change their tone of voice. They change their whole persona. They change their whole personality, the way they talk, and because there's this belief that changing that somehow makes you more spiritual, or maybe you're in a higher vibration or something, but that's because there's a fundamental belief that who you are as a human being is low vibration. And therefore, when you enter into spirituality, you need to kind of abandon that, so that's a fundamental flaw in people's belief. And this is why so many spiritual people are very dissociated from reality, where they are too much into the spiritual concepts, into the spiritual world. And there's nothing wrong with embracing that part, but it kind of creates an imbalance.
Right.
where they can't even function as much anymore as a regular human being. They can't have regular conversations with people. You know, they can't even talk about anything mundane for just a couple of minutes. You know, everything has to be a spiritual thing, you know, and
they put themselves on the pedestal where everyone else is down here and they're up here. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Like they portray like this false humility, almost as if like this, it's really weird how they do it, you know, what I've seen, because they just have this like this self-righteousness about them, and like this holier than thou kind of demeanor that just kind of comes out, you know, and they feel like changing up who they are and talking a very, you know, like specific way, and you know you know what I mean, and just talking in that like hypnotic kind of tone that they do a lot of times. Many of them, you know, they think that that's high vibrational, and honestly it's very manipulative, to be honest with you, because they're hiding who they really are, you know, in order to kind of make you see them in a certain way, and that's honestly a form of manipulation and also deception.
Right.
You know?
Right. And then, you know, in essence, it becomes another religion. You know, it's another just another program that people enter into. And I admittedly fell into that when I first went through my awakening. I was all gung-ho about all the spiritual practices, meditation. I just like thought I could flip a switch and forget about who I was and become this new version of myself. And I became so out of balance. Like I was so unhappy. I was so lost. And I was just, I didn't know where to go. And this was years ago, but, and the way I broke free from that was I just went and bought a 6-pack and opened up a beer and built a fire in my backyard. And this was like, because I had came from the party scene, and I was like alcohol's evil and all the stuff. And I don't drink anymore now for my own reasons, but I don't know. I was separating myself so much from who I was by all these spiritual practices that I thought were actually getting me somewhere, and they actually weren't getting me anywhere. Obviously, there's lessons in everything. So, and we can't blanket everyone under that same statement, but that was my experience with it.
Yeah. You know, I come from a Christian background, and I was not like a partier or like a drinker or anything like that. After I got out of the church, I did a little bit, you know, of drinking. I mean, I still drink from time to time. You know, I'm not a drinker, but I do it on occasions because it's like, you know, sometimes it does feel good, you know. And honestly, I feel like a lot of people could use, you know, a glass of wine. To be honest,
you need a drink,
in moderation.
Some people just need to relax. You know, especially a lot of these spiritual folks, man, they are way too uptight about, you know, because they're in the spiritual things all fucking day long, you know. And so I really think that they could just use a beer, you know what I mean? I mean, obviously some of them who've had like an alcoholic past, maybe not, but, you know, a lot of them, they could use something that just makes them chill out. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. You know, a lot of this also is just a way of people masking or not wanting to face themselves and do the shadow work, right? And
escapism.
Escapism.
Disguised as spirituality. It's not spirituality at all. Actually, it's just escapism. But they put this spiritual like aura around it, that and then it's also ego, because it makes them, oh, I'm so enlightened and spiritual, and they put themselves on this pedestal with their ego. And then it's also they're escaping their pain and their true self, because they have all this pain and trauma that they don't want to deal with. So instead of that, they use spirituality as like a drug to numb the pain and to escape their problems. And, oh, I'm going to ascend away from all my problems. And when what we're supposed to do is the exact opposite. Ground deeply into this and bring heaven here. You awaken here fully, rather than it's not about escaping here to somewhere else, which is what a lot of spiritual people are. That's their only focus, is escaping here, getting away from it, and trying to teach everyone else to do the same, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So all of that is rooted, you know, in trauma, and just not, you know, just being sick and tired of your own life. You know, this is rooted in self-hatred, self-loathing. There's many people, they really hate their lives, man, and they are so miserable. And I'm just like, I just have to like just say the truth. Like, people really just are freaking miserable, you know what I mean? And they hate themselves. They hate their jobs. They hate, whatever's going on in their life. And spirituality, man, like when I got out of the Christian umbrella, I started tapping
Yep. I was there.
and I started tapping into like the higher energies. Like it does feel good. There is a euphoria, with it. There is a peace. There is this like loving, all-encompassing, energy that you feel when you start tapping into the higher energies. And there was a time where I was not very happy with myself, and I used spirituality as an escape. I was in it like 24/7 because I didn't want to deal with my own woundings, that was coming up, and so, but eventually I did, because I'm the kind of person where I have to face myself eventually, you know what I mean? So, I don't, I'm the kind of person where if there's something coming up in me that needs to be looked at, then I look at it, and I don't really, I don't like to run away from myself, and I believe that everyone should do some level of shadow work. I went through a very, dark period in my life, transmuting a lot of the, distorted religious, energy, and just my own shadow, with spirituality. So I basically had to master my inner, narcissism and like integrate it, because, part of the reason why I am accessing the kind of information that I am on a spiritual level is because I've done a lot of the shadow work, you know what I mean? And it's like, so there's this like trust that's on my energy, and, which is why I'm able to do a lot of the things that I do, and this is why I tell people a lot of times, especially because I talk to psychics a lot of times, because they are the ones that are mainly trying to tap into the higher, information and just go deeper into the spiritual realm. I'm always giving them a word of caution because I know the dangers that's out there. I know I've seen people when they try to access too much power ahead of their shadow integration and ahead of their like trauma healing, they become a hazard. They literally become a hazard, in the spiritual community, where they get so high off of the power that they reach and the level of knowledge, of the spiritual knowledge that they're tapping into. What happens is that the shadow, the unintegrated shadow, it takes that knowledge and then begins to warp the person's mind to then use that knowledge to manipulate people, to access their codes, to access their energies. And of course, that can get into the other topic of the higher dimensions or siphoning people's energies and all of that stuff.
Well, let's go straight there, because that's super important. If taking everything we've said, that would obviously lend one to believe that not everyone who's in this spiritual community is who we think they are, right? And there's infiltrators, and some people don't, or maybe compromise, or whatever you want to say, and some people might not even understand what's happening to them because they've avoided their own shadow work. And sometimes you're so ingrained, you're so enveloped in it that you can't see it for yourself. But you mentioned also about people stealing keys and codes. Like this goes very deep. Can you touch on that, please?
All right. So this was in relation to the new Akashic records, but this could be just in general with everything. So everybody holds a specific set of keys and codes, and these keys and codes has to do with their own spiritual lineage, their own connection, their own spiritual gifts, right? And their unique level of access to the spiritual realm, So these codes and these keys can look like many different things. So in their, just working with thousands of people just in sessions, I've seen that many people hold, like energetic crystal looking things, they can hold an actual key made of energy. It can be like some kind of staff or like some kind of rod of power. Some people hold, geometric shapes within them, and that can be their own unique coding as well. And these things can give them access to certain kinds of things in the spiritual realm. So, for example, people who have a connection to the Akashic records, they have a certain kind of energy signature that allows them to access it, to access the records. And so what these infiltrators, or should I say these traders, that's really what they are. They are past life galactic traders of the light. And I'll get into that in a moment. But because they are, because you have to be in a relatively higher, like in a high vibration to be able to access certain, a certain level, within the universe. And so many of these people, because they're vibrating low because of past life karma, because they have a lot of treachery in their energy field, right? They are shut out from a lot of access to the spiritual realm. The most they can access is probably like 4D, and that's it. So the reason why many of these traders can access, or in the past, they could access higher dimensions or, access the Akashic records to like steal a lot of the information, is because they stole it from the codes of other people. So they were many of them were hunting for people with specific coding so that they can get access to certain information, so that they can then manipulate the information for their own gain. So they would get many of these people. They were their clients or their followers on social media, and people who were just not awakened to who they are yet, but they have these like special keys and codes within them. And so they open up their energy field and, they just basically take their codes, and there's just I've seen it happen to so many people who reached out to me for help, when they felt something was taken away from them from very specific people who have blocked me, but,
or even,
and who I've had like public like confrontations with, in the past, you know what I mean? But I'm not in that vibe anymore. But yeah, so
right. Well, I mean, so like this reminds me of the people that reach out to you in your inbox telling you that they got a message that you need help, or that you need a session with them. You should book a session with me. I was guided to reach out to you. And it would seem like this would be one of the tactics or strategies of obtaining these keys, right? Yep. Via a session. It could be a number of ways, but not everyone is who you think they are. And it's very, like, you have to be very cautious moving forward, especially now, because it's literally a war,
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a big war happening in the spiritual and the galactic community. Mostly now it's shifting from more spiritual into galactic more. You know what I mean? That's what I've noticed. It was very Luciferian at one point and very satanic, but it's not so much that anymore. It's more galactic, is what I've been noticing. And what you mentioned about people just reaching out and just kind of like, because I had this recent client who's also a friend of ours. She had messaged me, right after we had did some soul retrieval on her and she felt a whole lot better. This lady that she also followed all of a sudden just messaged her and be like, hey, I kind of feel that you created some dark contracts with aliens. I think you need my help. You know what I mean? And she was very persuasive. Like, these people are very persuasive. They know how to talk. They know how to persuade people. They know how to use words. They know how to be very manipulative. They know how to be very friendly, and I was like, you got to tell her to kick rocks, because she was like, her energy was just really dark, So, I've had other people in the past where they just come and message me out of nowhere, like whenever I create, like a post that triggers a lot of people, and be like, hey, Spirit is telling me that there is something dark about your energy that you're not seeing, and you need to look at that more, it basically ends up in them blocking me because, these people, like, they're so bold, and it's like they can't even, some of them, were good people, but they were just influenced by other things, So basically what happens a lot of times is that my energy surfaces things in people. And what they tend to do, they tend to project it at me as if there's something wrong with me. But I'm actually just surfacing it in them because of something that I said,
Right.
So
trigger. It's a trigger.
Yeah. So to get a little bit more into the galactic, these infiltrators, right? So many of them are in the spiritual community. Many of them are in the galactic disclosure community. Many are in the SSP community. Many are in these big, meetings that happen. I see them, and many of them, they have betrayed the light in past lives. And so because they have committed some kind of treachery in some kind of way, and they have aligned themselves with the dark side, they're just continuing their mission in this life by spreading lies, or they're coming against certain energies that are actually pure and say, certain energy has been infiltrated. So what they tend to do a lot is that they know the certain kinds of energies that the collective trusts, specifically energies within the Christ, lineage, like, for example, Archangel Michael, or and just these archangels that are actually benevolent in nature. What they do is that they take certain terminologies that they use and certain, like, the way that they speak and the way that they present information makes it seem as if what they're saying is very plausible, Right. Like, for example, if they want to say that Archangel Michael is hijacked, which has been happening lately, they've been saying that Archangel Michael is hijacked, Archangel, Gabriel, or like Metatron or Thoth or whatever, all these other things, they are basically attacking the Christ line, and they are trying to get people to not, how should I say this? There is an inherent source of energy within everyone that is of the Christ energy, and they're trying to get people to not trust in that energy anymore, by saying that it's hijacked or that it's connected to like a false grid system. And they would throw out, like, literally, they would make up words. And because people don't understand what's going on and they present the information in a certain way, people be like, well, they probably know what they're talking about because they're throwing out all these freaking terminologies and it kind of makes sense, whatever. But it doesn't really make sense. It's actually very confusing, so it doesn't make sense. People are just captivated by the lingo that is used, right, and the way that the terminologies are stringed together. I mean, I got to give it to them. Sometimes they are good at promoting their own lies, to be honest with you, because they ensnare a lot of people, and it's a consciousness trap. So they have many forms of consciousness traps that they do. And one of the big ones is to say, this being is hijacked, you can't trust it anymore or whatever.
Right. And that happens a lot lately, in particular, a lot lately. Everything that we all of a sudden that we all knew and trusted is all of a sudden hijacked and we can't trust it.
Exactly.
Those are red flags. Those are huge red flags that some people are, and we have to talk about the black magic that's involved. It's manipulation, but there's a form of black magic, spell casting, broadcasting, whatever. And some of these followers are quite literally under a spell and they don't even see it. And you won't see it until you're out of it. And I know that's a hard concept and a bold claim, right? Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I truly believe that is the case in some cases.
Yeah, for sure. I had just to touch a little bit on what you said about people, when they hear that a being that they trust and is actually malevolent, and all of a sudden they're hearing that they're, hijacked and it can't be trusted, it literally just leaves people confused, and be like, well, I don't know what to trust anymore. And that's what makes people even more vulnerable to all kinds of, spiritual manipulation, because then the one thing or the few energies that they trusted that kind of helped them through a certain part of their life, now all of a sudden they can't trust this being. And that's extremely damaging for people. That's very, very damaging, and honestly, very, very malevolent.
Right.
And so that honestly makes me very angry at how some of this information is presented as if it's facts, and just how people, and I can't get mad at people because people are just looking for truth. People are just looking for truth, and they don't really know what to believe or who to follow. So they just listen to everyone who's speaking with any kind of conviction, whether it's truth or not. They're just like, oh, well, this person must be saying the truth. So, whatever. And so they don't know how to really listen to their discernment and their intuition, honestly, because their intuition is already clouded by the information or by the black magic that's like kind of like, over their, like a veil over their eyes. And that's another thing about, there is a lot of black magic that is working behind many of these infiltrators, or probably all of them. Like what I found in just reading into this, reading into some of these energies, is that many of them, or what would come forward, is like these dark magician looking figures, and that's through my, higher self readings that I do, where I tap into people's multidimensionality, and there's these different kind of beings that come forward, that represent that person, and so with a lot of these dark infiltrators, I would either see, like an angelic being, which is very dark and malevolent, like a fallen angel, or like a dark malevolent witch looking being, or like a dark wizard, looking being, or like a malevolent ET, like a straight up Draco or something, or like a, or like a gray, like superimposing themselves over the person's face. I would see it, and that's when I would know like what's working through the person. And a lot of times I would see a lot of dark magician energy, where these people have these like really dark, magician, multidimensional part of who they are that's working behind the scenes, channeling that energy to basically put people under a spell, further assisting the person who's putting out these, very distorted perceptions. So a lot of times what needs to be done, and what I have done, is basically nullify a lot of the energies that's working behind people's messages, because what most people, they are only looking at information from a very surface perspective, just a very intellectual surface perspective, and how things are phrased. And from that realm, it can be like words can be very, very manipulated, and they're not realizing that this like wow factor that they feel sometimes with this information is the spell that's literally, enchanting them.
Right.
And this resonance that they feel with the information, it's really the energy. It kind of converts their thought patterns to where they're more accepting that information. And then that's why it feels like a resonance, but it's not really a resonance. It's a spell that they're under.
Right. That's really interesting, the way you put that, the wow factor. Yeah. And this is tricky. Now I don't want to confuse people even more, because there is it is possible to actually resonate with truth, right? And real information, and not everything that has wowed you has been false. Like we can't, this is where, this is a very difficult topic to tread, because I don't want to lend to the confusion, but I want people to be aware of all of this stuff that is taking place that so many people just seem to be blind to. And that's the purpose of this discussion. But that's really interesting, like that wow factor. And that is because when people get so enamored by some of this information, or even just by like personal compliments, sometimes people will get love bombed, and they're like, oh, wow, this person's my friend, I trust them. And that's a form of manipulation. It's like a playbook they have,
They're energy vampires is what I've noticed, which is a narcissist, same thing. They're narcissists, energy vampires. And what they're doing is they're setting themselves up, especially these big names in the community that set themselves up as these authorities, as these cult leaders, basically, even though they wouldn't call themselves that, but that's exactly what they are. And then they get this big following that all feeds them, and they love that. And anything that threatens that, if you notice, anything they say, if someone else says something that contradicts it, or someone challenges their narrative or them in any way, they get extremely, extremely angry and defensive, and will usually start attacking that person immediately, like viciously. And then will further like their following, like be like, you guys all have the truth. Don't worry,
Right.
Don't listen to all those other things. That's all, it's this very, very cult leader vibe that they all have. And it's energy vampires. There's no other way to put it. And they feed off of the energy of their followers, and they're on this pedestal and everyone else is down here feeding them, so that's something I've noticed. There's a bunch of those in the community, and they get very threatened by anything other than worshiping them and believing everything they say,
right.
Anything other than that. So,
yeah, I know some people personally that have, like, I tend to, I guess, the universe, they tend to bring a lot of these people to my awareness, and vice versa, me to their awareness, and they come across my messages, and I talk about discernment and how many, people who are, spiritual leaders and, mentors, how they are taking advantage of the energies.
And they're always the first one to comment. Like, yes,
they're always the first one to comment. A lot of them compliment me, and they'd be like, "Yeah, brother, right on." And I'm like,
I'm talking about you.
Talking about you.
Exactly. And it's like, some of them, they know what they're doing, and some of them are doing it on purpose, but they think everyone's too stupid and naive. And honestly, many people are very naive. I won't call anyone stupid, but many people are naive, to be honest, to a lot of the manipulation, because it's happening in a spirit realm. It's happening behind their awareness a lot of times. And so I've encountered many of these people, gotten severely triggered by my energy. I'm probably blocked by probably almost all of them by now, And so, I went through a season of literally confronting a lot of these people in their own comment section, where they would typically ignore most people. But then when I comment with that energy, like I grab them and bring them, like, like, you're going to respond to me, you know what I mean? And then we get into a back and forth, and I expose them in their own comment section, Nice. Like, I went through a season of doing that. I'm not doing that anymore. Right. I don't think that's a wise move, because I'm entering into a new field with, honestly, people who are just on a different playing field, you know what I mean? And I just need to move a bit more strategically
right.
nowadays.
Yeah. But it's not necessarily healthy to do that anyway,
Yeah. It served its purpose for that time, but now it's like, it's a new energy. It's a new thing now. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of people who they just need to wake up. Now, on one level, this is serving as a lesson for many people, and as like a wake up. So for many, it's serving as their awakening, right, to what's actually happening out there. The only thing is that many of them, they get so traumatized by these experiences that they never recover, or they never come back into the spiritual community, or they become like one of those, Christians that just speak against everything spiritual. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so there's a lot of that going on too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to see, that's what it's designed to do, right? It's like anybody out there who's promoting division and all these separation tactics and stuff, these cancel culture vibes, that's all designed to confuse people and make them just want to like give up and go back into the matrix. Like, screw this whole community. Like, I'm going back to my job. I'm just going to live my life. But then by doing that, you're now complicit in the matrix. You're feeding the system that you were just trying to fight against. But it gets very confusing. So let's talk about like how we can safely navigate this now, because now we know there's all these hazards. How can we safely navigate and move forward for the audience? Yeah, because they're going to be asking, what can we do? What should we do?
So how to safely navigate this like very tricky reality, So it's very challenging. I will say that, first of all, because sometimes in order to connect yourself with the truth, you have to go through some level of deception first. That's how you learn.
Right. There's lessons in all of this. Yeah.
There's lessons in all of it. But there comes a point where people get they get
Oh, you just muted.
better than they should be.
Can you repeat that?
Sorry. It comes a point where people, they get trapped in those energies way longer than they should have, where it's no longer a lesson. Now it's more of an oppression that they don't need, And so what people need to do, and this is what I advise people all the time, is to literally begin connecting with themselves, because there's such a lack of it, honestly. Like, people are not doing their own, they're not doing their homework. They're not connecting with themselves. What they're doing is that they're just intaking so many information. Like, people in the spiritual community, they typically follow like maybe 5 or more, spiritual people saying all kinds of information. And a lot of times it's very contradicting, and so they're filling their energies. They're partaking of so many different energies, and many of them, they contradict each other. And because they're not doing the inner work, they're not properly dissecting the information that is for them versus what is not for them, because that's what the inner work helps people do. So when they're not, doing their inner work, they're just, they are
falling for taking the bait.
Exactly. And this is why, like, I tell people, to just start meditating and start asking yourself, is this information, is it even good for me? Because some people, they get too enamored by how things sound or how things look, that they aren't checking in with themselves to ask their own spirit, because people's own spirit knows exactly what information is for them versus what isn't. But people have become, and I would say, very lazy, honestly, with their own meditations and with connecting with themselves. They've just become very lazy, and they've just kind of gotten into this trap of information overload.
Right.
So,
and right. And it's super important. I forgot what I was going to say. What is this? It's a trap. Damn it. It'll come back to me.
It's almost like relying on the external information to save them rather than being their own saviors and doing the inner work. Because that's the truth.
Yeah. Like,
it's reversed.
They're not really like tapping into their own power. What they're doing is just absorbing a bunch of information, and they think that just, it makes them, I guess there is a sense of safety that they feel in just knowing a lot of things, whether it's for them or not. It's just the safety of hoarding information, because it makes them feel like they're in the know, and it makes them feel like they're not ignorant. It makes them feel, like they're on top of things. And a lot of times that's very counterintuitive, to be intaking so many different perspectives and not allowing your energy to properly digest the information and get rid of the waste versus what's actually nutrients. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like the body, right? People are not allowing themselves to, get rid of the waste, that's in their energy field, because they're not doing the proper inner work that's necessary. So they have a bunch of lies mixed with truth. And it's like, and when you have that, you become very confused. You don't really know what's going on. You can't connect to your own personal truth, because you have all of these perspectives and stuff. And so that's another consciousness trap as well.
Right. And then there's the need, none of us are perfect here, because I was once there. Like, I fell for a lot of this stuff in the past. You learn from experience, right? You learn the hard way. And I'm here right now speaking from experience, and I know you're doing most of the speaking, but you know what I mean?
Right.
It's from experience. This is from a place, we've learned these lessons, and it's something that you notice over and over, and it needs to be brought to people's attention. And what people do, and we've said this before, is that they are so, I guess they're always looking for this external information. They don't realize that when they do this work, they can just tap in themselves and get this information for themselves. And this is something I'm trying to do as of late. Like, it's not as easy as one would think, but you're not going to get there unless you try, right? Unless you start doing the work. And And I think that's the ultimate goal, is like, we won't need all these external sources for this information, because we'll be able to just tap in immediately and get what we need. A lot of the stuff that we're interested in isn't actually necessary for us to know. And this is,
That's another issue. Yeah.
right, exactly. So it becomes a distraction, and now you're putting your focus somewhere else. So when you're tapping in and getting your own information, you're getting information that you need for your soul's evolution and for your soul's growth. So yeah, I mean, I know you're agreeing with that, right?
Yeah, for sure. So you are spot on, especially when you said the distraction. So a lot of this information, most of what people are regurgitating and intaking in the spiritual community and in the galactic community, honestly, has nothing to do with their own personal evolution, and it just becomes a distraction at this point. Many people are severely distracted, so distracted, but their minds are making them think that they're on top of what's happening, but they're not really connected with their own personal path and what they need to do. They're just living, their own life, but they're very disconnected from themselves, but they're following what other people are saying, and there's nothing wrong with listening to perspectives. But if you're not doing the inner work, just so that people can understand like what it looks like, or an example of it would be to, if you're hearing a perspective from someone and it challenges you, or it sounds interesting or whatever, what people need to be doing is getting into, a state of meditation and start asking their own, higher self, their own soul, is this information relevant to me? Is this even true for me, for my personal evolution? Is this going to benefit me? And people need to like feel the answer out, because people get so enamored by the way the information is presented, that they just stick with that instead of asking themselves, and
right. What do I think of this? Yeah. I mean,
what do I think of this?
Right. We know what this person thinks, and that person thinks, but what do you think? Like, when you sit with yourself, what do you think? Ask yourself those questions. Like, is this true? Is this person deceiving me? What are the motives here? Like, is this person authentic? You have to ask yourself these questions.
There's also like some nuances around that, because most of these people are working with this black magic energy, and sometimes it will enchant people. And so even when they do their own meditations, they're enchanted. So people need to learn how to protect their energy field. That's first and foremost. They need to learn how to shield themselves properly, because a lot of this, information from people, it's emanating a certain energy that will influence your consciousness and your energy field in a particular way, whether it's good information or bad information. Well, actually, because the information can be good, but the energy behind it can be bad. But
right.
Whether it's good energy or bad energy.
Well, so, and then that's the other trick of the psyop, right? So if somebody is trying to invert some information or push a certain narrative, they're going to have a lot of truth, and a lot of what they're saying is going to be true, and it's going to resonate. But then they slip in these little nuggets of untruth that are actually devastating to the narrative, but people just take it in with the rest of it. And once you see this, once you're aware of the spells and the tactics, and once you know how it all operates, you can't unsee it. And it becomes so easy to identify that within somebody. So I would say that's also good advice, is to, learn how to recognize these patterns. And as soon as you see somebody doing it, no matter what they're saying, even if it interests you, sometimes I just separate myself entirely, because for one, I don't want to fill my brain with false information. If I can't decipher what's true and untrue coming from a person, I just separate entirely, sometimes. Now, as a podcast host, and we have all these people on bringing you all this information, it's difficult, and we do our best to, because that's how we also learn. Like you said, maybe it's not necessarily the information somebody has, but it's opening up new concepts. And, and it's giving you new perspectives on things. And this is how the awakening happens. You know, we have to open our minds and expand our thinking in that way. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you on that one. I feel like, everyone, everyone definitely is on their own, not just journey, but on their own, I guess, level of understanding or level of tapping into certain, like spiritual concepts. And I wanted to like backtrack on something, because sometimes some people do have a wow factor with, what I say a lot of times. And they do say that, where I get a lot of messages where they message me and say that that my message resonates and that I speak the truth and all that stuff. But every time I'm always telling people to just, tune in with their own, voice. You know what I mean? Because even if what I'm saying resonates, or I may be speaking, a level of, spiritual truth, I always still advise people to, connect with their own, voice. You know what I mean? So, I just want to say that.
No, I agree. And something I remember what I was going to say earlier, as far as, some people get like, it becomes no longer a lesson, but an oppression. And sometimes people don't, even though they understand, like they might've been duped, they don't want to admit it. And sometimes it's easier to run with a lie than it is to face yourself and face the truth. And then that's also what we see with a lot of these, anyone. It doesn't even have to be in a spiritual community, just anyone. People have an image to maintain, right? So they become this fake version of themselves, and instead of being true, like you said, it's a form of manipulation.
Yeah.
That was just a thought from earlier. It just came back.
Yeah, for sure. So what you were saying about people not wanting to admit it to themselves, I went through that earlier in my, early years of like, having my spiritual awakening, where I trusted the wrong people. And there is like a shame behind it, where you just feel, like, man, like, why didn't I see that? Like, how could I have allowed myself to be deceived in that way, And it was a big, like, humbling of my ego, just because I thought that I was not able to be deceived, at one point, and then I was, and it's like, so it was just like a humbling and like a learning experience for me to understand just how deep the deception goes, and also to understand at the time, like I'm not impervious to being deceived. I just need to be very discerning, and as long as I am very discerning, then I won't attract that kind of deception. I mean, I don't listen to people anyways. I just follow my own spiritual guidance,
Right.
So, I don't listen to anybody at all. I mean, I read certain posts and stuff like that. Yeah, whatever. But ultimately, I don't listen to people. I really don't. And this is what people need to, like, people are afraid of even conceptualizing that the person that they're following might be compromised, because it literally really like it ruins their trust in just spirit in general, and in the universe and in God. And I have restored many people's faith in the spiritual community. Like, people were like literally one betrayal away from just like walking out of the spiritual community until they worked with me. And it's like, I just restored their faith, because I tend to do things with integrity. And, when I say something, that, that's what it is. It doesn't have like a double meaning to it. It, like, I say what it is, and so, there were many people that were just on the brink of literally like just losing all hope, even in the Christian or in the Christ consciousness energy and Jesus and the angels and everything, everything, because they've been deceived and just played by many of these other, spiritual leaders that have like really traumatized them, not just with their perspectives, but also with, energy work and like astral traveling in their homes and like attacking them psychically. So there's that too, and just a whole bunch of other stuff.
I like what you said about the follower not admitting or not wanting to believe that their influencer has been compromised, right? They have a hard problem accepting that idea and that reality, because it's not just what you said earlier, but it's also, in a way, they attach their identity to that. And,
Yep.
and it's like a little mini ego death, which I've experienced plenty of those, and they keep coming, you never know. But it's very true. You don't want to, because here's what happens. You find this person online. You're wowed by their information. It's spectacular. You start telling your friends and you start telling them, hey, check this person out, check this person out. And if something happens where they turn out to be compromised, you feel stupid. You kind of feel dumb. And then you don't want to admit it, right? So you keep being that cheerleader for that person, and you're lying to yourself. And that doesn't mean that this person, like everything they said was false, but you understand that, like, it's a lesson to me. It's like a lesson in detaching the message from the messenger sometimes, because sometimes a person can have good information, but they can be a shitty person, Yeah,
I've definitely met a lot of those, like this one person back in the day where she was saying a lot of good information, like spiritual updates and stuff that, I deeply resonated with. And, I felt it was true, and it was true. And she was like not even hiding it. Like she was literally like making all kinds of agreements with like demonic beings and shit, and like trying to spy on people, trying to spy on me, and just doing a lot of malpractice, and wasn't even hiding it,
Right.
Energetically wasn't hiding it. Other people, they tend to mask their, or like cloak their like energetic work, and like what they do. But this person just didn't give a shit, you know what I mean? Because she had all her people just enchanted, just like singing her praises, and,
Right.
So there's a couple of those. There was this other one, for example, that was also using certain kinds of fourth dimensional technologies to basically put like a USB into people's energy field to extract their codes. And, I went through a couple of months trying to, I guess, reach out to this person, and this person had a following, you know what I mean? And very big in the spiritual community. And, I just have a thing with my energy that people, I don't allow them to ignore me, like energetically speaking, like when I'm focused on someone who I want to like give a message to, I energetically be like, hey, I have something to say, you know what I mean? And they get hooked, and they just, they have this back and forth. And so sometimes it's on Messenger. So like with her, it was on Messenger, it was more private. But so basically I told her to stop what she's doing, to like stop hijacking people's fields. Also, there was other people messaging me about it, having a very negative experience. And so that just prompted me to check on things and be like, yeah, she's, siphoning people's energies, like making these like, these agreements, or like making these energetic contracts that if people work with her, they sign a contract without their knowing it, to where she can siphon their codes, but she can give them the upgrades or the energy clearing, which isn't really that at all, So I basically confronted her a couple of times, and it just ended up being where it got very volatile, especially like publicly.
Right.
And so this person went out of the spiritual community and went into Christianity. There was a big thing that broke out, like a scandal,
Right.
with her clients, and her clients all turned on her. You know what I mean? Like this happened to a couple of people that I knew that had this kind of clash with me, where I was warning them and be like, hey, you got to be of integrity. You can't be misusing your platform and your people to access their energy field. You know what I mean? Like the universe has like put me as like a roadblock to many of these people, and be like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you misusing this energy? Why are you taking advantage of people? Like, why are you doing that?
Right.
There's no need for that.
Right. It's
and
like,
so,
right.
It's like you have, it's almost like you just have this natural gift to identify a false prophet.
Oh yeah. I can see them. I can see the energies that are working behind me. I can see the entities around them. You know what I mean?
That's
So,
yeah,
it's crazy.
I know I've experienced that as well. Let's shift gears a little bit. I think people get the idea as far as that goes. You also you get galactic updates. You have great information that you share also that isn't about all of this. I just wanted to cover that, but you recently had some information come through about Sirius B activation and what that actually means for the collective consciousness. Can you please explain that, because it's absolutely fascinating?
Yeah, so me and my partner, we do like a lot of spiritual work all the time. We're just out there, astral traveling, just doing stuff, getting updates and, information and things like that. So I felt, like I heard it in my ear, Sirius B. So I never really looked it up. I mean, I've heard of it, but I never really looked up what it was. So when I heard Sirius B, I was like, so I looked it up and I realized it's like a big bright star or whatever. And that's pretty much all I knew about it. So what we do is that we energetically travel. So not like astral traveling, but like mental body, where I project my consciousness wherever, I want to go. So that's what we did. We just went right there, and so this is going to get very cosmic, so it might sound very surreal to many of the listeners. But so we traveled there. We were met by an extraterrestrial that was one of the keepers of Sirius B there. And, he guided us in, and it was like a light. And then it just kind of turned into like this big crystal temple that was inside of it. And within this crystal temple, there was many like big, crystal structures. And there was this like crystal console in the middle with like, with some, light language hieroglyphics and stuff like that. But it was almost like it was turned off. And there was like structures with, light language and stuff. And so they showed us like, like a key slot, like a crystal, but it was like a, like a long little crystal that you insert into that, into the console. And so my partner, she just inserted into the console and everything just lit up, with like light language. And this big beam of light is shot from the Sirius B star into other Sirius Bs in the galaxy, So what it was doing is that it was connecting itself to other solar systems within the galaxy. Now, there are many things that went into effect energetically because of that. So, and I'm going to list a couple of things. So one of the things was that this solar system is now connected with other solar systems that are in a much, higher vibrations, more ascended solar systems. So that energy being connected, it's going to draw energy from those solar systems to help our highest timeline accelerate even more. So there's an acceleration of the golden age or the age of Aquarius, whatever, people want to call it, this highest timeline that's manifesting or that we are in right now. And that's manifesting slowly. But it's accelerating it. So another thing that went into effect is that it's accelerating the timeline of humanity eventually meeting and greeting their extraterrestrial neighbors. As you already know, we've been kept from the knowledge of, the outside, world out there in the cosmos as to all the extraterrestrials, galactic history, and just how related they are to, humans. And so, a lot. So that timeline of that disclosure moment coming, it is accelerating more, is what I saw. Another thing that I saw is that it's helping humanity connect more with the galactics that are already here, like over the planet, trying to connect with people. So there are many people that are receiving a lot more messages and a lot more dreams and a lot more, promptings from their galactic guides that are trying to communicate with them, whether it's to give a message, an update, or whether it's to, do a specific something, whatever it may be, so the galactics, there are so many species of galactics trying to connect with humanity right now, and many of those species are incarnated as those people and trying to connect them back with their own, a galactic family. Okay. So that might confuse people. So let me,
no, it's not, it makes sense. I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah. But for those who might not understand, like what I just said, I just want to word it a little bit differently. So there are many people on Earth right now who have connections to the galactics, but it's not just a connection. It's because they are those actual ETs in human form. and those ETs that are trying to connect with them is just a part of them, a part of who they are, and also their team that came here. So many people are just connecting with their galactic team. So that also accelerated and that like expanded. So it's a lot easier now for people to connect with the benevolent ETs. Of course, there's always bad ETs that are still lingering, like the grays and stuff like that are still influencing some people. So, but the vast majority of what's happening right now is that there's this clear open sky connection to the benevolent galactics, and people can connect so easily right now, so yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
I agree. I agree with that. And it's so fascinating to think about that it's you, another version of you that you're connecting with sometimes, obviously there's other groups out there, and people are like, you said, I'm noticing that, everyone's noticing it. People around me are receiving messages, getting activated. It's a beautiful thing, really, that it's like we've entered this new age, right, where this information is now available, and this line of communication has been open. And I think it might have something to do with that Sirius B activation.
Yeah, definitely. The Sirius B activation, it just like accelerated all of it, because Sirius B is it's like the energetic ley line point of this specific quadrant of the solar system. So it just like shot a beam and just connected to so many others, almost like a web, or like a grid of Sirius B's activation. So what this is also doing is that it is bringing more of a unity to the galaxy, because there's been so much war and so much oppression across so many star systems. And it has created a lot of disharmony between many galactic species. And this is bringing more of a unity energy, more of a loving, more of a cohesive, energy. So it's fostering that even more. So how that's going to look is that many extraterrestrial species are going to begin resolving the issues that they have with each other, whatever those issues are. They're gonna, there are many galactic diplomats, that are out there, and many of them are actually incarnated. I've given readings to some of them who are galactic diplomats, in the human, here on Earth, and their mission, a part of their mission is to basically to calm down a lot of the tension that many people feel, because there is a lot of tension within the galactic community. And that's also because many people come from many different star systems, they inherit many of the issues of their star systems. You know what I'm saying? And so some of them might have, a resistance to certain galactic species that are not, malevolent, but that may be good. But because these issues are surfacing and people may not even understand why or what's happening.
Right.
But a lot of these, a lot of these issues from their own star systems are surfacing within them. So there are many galactic diplomats that are supposed to be there in the middle to kind of, bring the understanding and just kind of, just bring information so people can understand what's happening in them, because there's so many things happening, but that's, yeah.
That's it. That's really fascinating to think about. So let's just pretend like a Lyran race, right, is warring with a gray race out there, but even though it's a benevolent gray race, let's just pretend. Now, so you're going to see that reflect on the surface, because this person doesn't even realize that their own race or their own species is warring with this other species in the galaxy. Exactly. So it translates down here. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Another thing too, when you mentioned Lyran and the war, so many of the Lyrans, they've experienced, oppression from the Dracos, and that's a very traumatic thing, and I've worked with many people on one-on-one sessions where they had this visceral trigger whenever the word Draco was mentioned. And many of these people they had this Lyran part of them, they were Lyrans incarnated in human form. And they had this visceral fear of just, Dracos. And then after going deeper into their, history, it comes up where they've either been captured, right, or like, tortured by the Dracos, or this like invasion of their star systems, and there's just this trauma,
So it's in their DNA.
With it's so encoded within their DNA. It's like they can't not have a visceral reaction. Like, you know what I mean? Like it has to happen, So
Right.
And yeah, so I've definitely helped a lot of those people, like, move through that fear and just like surface it and just help them understand, So there are a lot of people who are still holding that trauma within their DNA, and that needs to be like, like released.
Right. And everything right now seems to be a little accelerated. And we've been getting some good news lately on the surface. There's some victories, some public victories finally for once. And it's nice to start to see that light at the end of the tunnel. And like these activations that are happening that are allowing us to communicate, there is a bright future ahead, but it's going to be a bumpy road. It's not going to happen overnight. I don't think we're going to get this, like, it wouldn't even matter if we got disclosure and all this information and all this technology, because we have healing to do and we don't have an infrastructure in place to accept all of it. It's going to be an integration process,
Sure. Yeah.
And I just made a post about this earlier, and I think to me, what it's going to look like is, a lot of this is an inside job, right? This couldn't have been a space battle. We had to incarnate here and break this system from the inside, right? So more and more higher dimensional beings are going to continue to incarnate to until we get to the point where lower dimensional beings don't have a place here, because everything is going to be we're moving into these new energies, right? And I think that's what ultimately how this shift is going to occur. And it has to happen from within, right?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, there's definitely, so when you mentioned the lower vibrational beings, I wanted to make another point about the Sirius B and what is accelerating. So many of these lower vibrational beings who are incarnating here, who are just like distorting information and hurting people. So there is a karmic, I guess, law that, even though it was already, like a spiritual law, you get what you receive, but that has been like, it's literally on steroids now. It's literally been amplified so much where people, even the ones that we know of, and the ones that we've talked about, and just others who are, infiltrators, the karma, like they already have karma now, but it's going to manifest where the black magic that's working through them is not going to have the same effect. They're not going to be able to captivate their audience anymore in the way that they used to. And people are going to begin, and it has already been happening, that they'll begin to confront and to question, and they're going to do it even more aggressively, because we're entering into a much higher energy. Well, we've already entered into it, and people are just not resonating with this kind of deception anymore, and just this like malpractice. So what it's accelerating is the swift karma that many of these people, well, all of them are going to receive and are already set to receive right now. Like the universe has already orchestrated it. The universe has already called for all of these people to basically be forced to do the right thing and to grow and to change for themselves. And if they don't change, then certain things will happen in their life that will make them completely irrelevant on social media.
Right.
Eventually.
Right. Yeah. So their magic is going to lose potency. Yeah.
It's going to lose. Yeah. So in the spiritual realm, that has already happened where their magic has already lost potency. So people are still under, just a residual programming of what they've, but eventually over time, people are going to begin to purge this, just this crap, naturally. And also, those who, listen to me and other people who are in alignment, and you also, who are in alignment with the truth, they're going to begin to, where we can help them deprogram from a lot of this stuff,
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And it's the age of transparency. So eventually, you can't, once we enter into the age of transparency, where we're all speaking using telepathy and our psychic abilities, like a lie has no place. You
no one's going to be able to lie.
You can't, and it's already happening. Try and lie to somebody. It won't work because depending on who it is, but immediately people are seeing through that shit now. If you're not under a spell. Anyway, this has been fascinating. It's been fantastic. Can you please let people know where they can find you, how they can follow you, your YouTube channel?
All right. So I have a YouTube channel called Sun Consciousness. I also have my Facebook and my website. It's thesunconsciousness.com. There I have, services that I provide to help people connect with their higher self, their multidimensionality. I do a bunch of energy clearings. I teach people how to shield. I'm also doing courses where I mentor people on how to connect with their spiritual gifts and how to embody that more and how to discern, how to tap in. So these are like for people who are psychic but might need some like mentorship in order to harness those abilities more. So that's mostly what I'm doing right now. It's just like mentoring a lot of people.
Right. And all those links will be below. Yeah, this is fantastic. And your YouTube channel, you don't have that many videos, but they're fantastic. Yeah,
I need to get in the motion of creating more content because there's a lot of things that I do want to talk about that I haven't put in a video, and that's what I'm going to begin doing. Right.
Well, I look forward to that. Thank you so much for this. Sorry if we triggered you guys listening. It's a conversation that needed to be had, and I think it's absolutely crucial right now to be discussing this stuff because it's the only way we're going to navigate and move forward.
Yeah. Yep. I did want to make one more point if I can.
Sure.
Is that these infiltrators, right? They have mobilized even more now, and they are working overtime, to distort a lot of the information, and you can tell a lot about what their intentions are by how incessantly they keep posting about the same kind of hijacky narrative all the time, where there's no hope, there is no higher timeline talk. It's just everything is hijacked, and and talking about those who betrayed. I will say some names, Melchizedek's or whatever. All the lingos that they use and all that stuff. So just be very mindful to how the information makes you feel. And I'm talking to just everybody watching. If it makes you feel like you have no hope for the future, or that you don't know who to trust, anymore, then that is a big sign that is someone that you don't need to be listening to.
Right.
Fear-based.
It's very, very fear-based.
Right.
In the name of being informed about, shit that is irrelevant or just purely just not true.
Right. Mm-hmm. Just let go of the need to know. You don't need to know everything. You can take a nap and go into hibernation, and this whole planet is going to ascend with or without you. So you don't have to know everything that's going on and be on top of it. Just be on top of you, yourself, and your own life, and what's real in your life, not the online world, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love you all. This has been amazing. Thank you again, Antonio, for joining us.
Thank you for
I can definitely see us doing this again because there's no shortage of things to talk about, and especially moving forward. Who knows what the future is going to bring? So, good night, everybody. Thank you so much for all your support. We love you, and have a great evening.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.